When he walked in here, if he's supposed to be in Parliament today, it would not be easy. Today is budget day, guys. So, as usual, we cannot have this conversation without involving young people. Budget matters today, but even more importantly, matters to us young people tomorrow. So today we have assembled two very great young people who will share their expectations today. And the expectations that they like to see in the budget, try and see if they can just post their expectations last year to what they're expecting today. And then we'll speak to an economist about his expectations. Gordon will tell us about Top Choco, and then we'll introduce our guest.
Yes, indeed. So our friends at Top Choco says that there is nothing more pleasing than Top Choco chocolate spread on bread. It has the power to awaken your taste buds and make you happy instantly. The Top Choco 3-in-1 instant mixed chocolate drink is suitable for preparing both cold chocolate milkshakes and cups of delicious hot chocolate. All you have to do is to add hot water. Introducing the latest addition to our Top Choco family, the Top Choco Choco Cup, which is suitable for everyone and will surely be a crowd pleaser. Children can take it to school and imagine serving these cups at birthday parties, picnics, or any other gathering. This chocolatey treat will definitely make their day. Get your hands on the Top Choco Choco Cup today and experience the joy of chocolate spread in a cup. Guys, remember Top Choco is made with love in Ghana using only the finest ingredients. Like MFS said, today is Budget Day, and joining us this morning is the Emperor, the Lion, the Conqueror himself, Father Julius Kwame Anthony, is a social activist, as well as Daniel Ufuria Champion, who is a youth activist. Like MFS said, we'll also be joined by financial analyst and economist, Dr. Daniel Amate in Nim. All right, in fact, he's joined us via Zoom this moment. So we're going to get right into the conversation. I was reading something online. Actually, I was listening to City yesterday, and the CEO of Dalex Finance was saying something. They were asking him about his expectations concerning the budget, and he said that ultimately he is looking at the government protecting the poor in 2024. That's all he's looking forward to. And MFA has expressed her expectations as well. So it looks like we all have something peculiar we are looking forward to. I'm not sure who to start with. Conqueror, please relax.
Yeah, let's go to Daniel. Let's go to Daniel this morning.
Yes. Daniel, you look nice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The economy is working for you.
If your watch there.
As well.
Hey, I
said my watch is big. I said my watch is big, but Daniel's on there. Seriously.
Relax.
It's good to have you. Your expectations?
Today,
Well, thank you to our cherished listeners and viewers. In fact, I'm expecting nothing but a budget of hope. We, as a youth, I hope to hearing budgets that will suit the unemployment rate as it stands now in the country. Then probably waive some taxes that I expect nothing but a budget of hope. Yeah.
do you remember what you expected last year?
Yeah.
Has it changed? Is it the same thing?
Well, I don't think it was that massive. The changes weren't that massive. But this time around, we hope to see a massive change in the budget.
Okay. Gordon, let's go on Zoom and talk to Doc. Hi, Doc. Good morning. Hello, Doc.
Doc, if you can unmute yourself. Okay, great.
Okay.
Good morning.
I can hear you. Glad to talk to you this morning.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And let me apologize because I promised to be in studio. Something happened beyond my control and I couldn't. So
We totally understand. We'll just steal some minutes of your time and then let you go. Most of the time, a day like this, we like to talk to people like you. My question today, before we even ask about your expectation, would be that many have said that inflation has reduced. I want to take the confirmation from you as an economist. Has it reduced, and is it true that it started reducing from about May?
Yes, there has been some marginal reduction in inflationary rate to date. But still, if you look at where it is, 40% is still quite high for any macro economic stability that we intend achieving. So yes, admittedly, as much as we have seen a marginal reduction over the period, I think from 54% down to 40%, there has been a certain degree of reduction. That is a fact. But the point is that even at 40.1% is still quite high for businesses, for individuals within the domestic economy to plan accordingly. So government, there is more for government to do in terms of reducing inflationary pressure.
Okay, and so are you expecting that it will feature in a certain way in the budget today?
Definitely, I expect, because I expect the Honorable Minister to play what I would describe the political economy in terms of reading the budget. I expect him to sing some praises in terms of the marginal reduction so far. But as I indicated, it is not anything to celebrate about because more ought to be done in terms of reducing the inflationary pressure. If you look at the budget, the target is supposed to be single digit. That is plus or minus 8%. It has been reviewed further because we realized we could achieve. So we're looking at somewhere 18%, and we are at 40.1 thereabout. So it is quite huge. There's more to be done. So as much as he would like to play the usual raises in terms of the marginal reduction over the period, as well as the fairly stable performance of the local currency, I would like to see a concrete policy that will ensure that we have the inflationary pressure reduced. In fact, if you look at the driver of our inflationary pressure, or the drivers, it is largely supply from the supply side. That is cost driven, cost of production. The prices of utilities have gone up, which has affected. So if government can holistically address and deal with those issues, then I'm on the view that we should be able to reduce inflationary pressure. But as it stands now, yes, as much as it has reduced, my point is that 40% thereabout is still high.
Still high. Okay. We're coming back to studio. When I come back to you, I'd like to ask, which sector are you really looking forward to significant, information from in the budget? Would it be agriculture? Which part of the sector? But hang in there and I'll come back. We'll talk to Anthony. Anthony, do you remember your last year's expectations?
Well, I do remember. Last year, I was more focused on the education sector, asking government to review its expenditure pattern, especially with the self-inflicted distraction in the growth of basic school infrastructure over the period since 2017. Basic school infrastructure has seen development. 18% of GET-FUND revenues only going there. Free SHS taking the chunk of it.
80% of the total of it.
Total of GET-FUND allocations, 18%, while Free SHS was taking over 44% and all that. That sort of arrangement is making young people suffer at a basic school level. More schools under trees are coming up. People attending community schools that do not have GHS and have to travel several distances to go to school and all that. Those were the expectations I had that government would do something about in reading last year's budget, which nothing changed up till now. Nothing has changed about that sector. It's still a concern that I would personally be raising today. Something needs to be done about financing education. The situation we have now is very bad. We cannot, as a people, say that we want inclusiveness, we want to give access to people, and then we create a situation where the basic, where people are supposed to start from, is struggling on our national budget. It's not a fair thing to do. And while we are at it, tertiary is also suffering. So the situation we have now is that there is massive resource inflow into Free SHS, even that with its, contingent challenges. And then basic school is suffering, tertiary education is suffering. We need a realignment of policy. More importantly, the capping and realignment of our expenditures with the IMF program now, I doubt they can do anything about it. But in any case, the revenues that still accrue from GET-FUND and these statutory, sources, should be equitably distributed. That is why I am still of the view that the Free SHS policy, as it stands today, needs review. Several organizations also call for that. African Education Watch called for that. We need a review of the policy so that education is looked at in a more holistic manner, and the funding is also looked at in a more holistic manner. When we want people to be included in education, we are looking at the individual and shaping him throughout. Not a situation where those who get lucky to get into secondary school get it for free. And the reason why this is even more problematic is because those who are key policy makers in government and all that, their children don't even go to these basic schools. And so they do not feel the realities of what we are talking about. We shouldn't have a situation where young people who go to basic schools struggle to have even textbooks and all that. And everyday education is what we actually, tout as the biggest achievement of the government. So that was my expectation last year. I was grossly disappointed, and I'm expecting that as one of the key priority areas which this government has started as where they perform, which I have contrary views to, looking at the indicators, that they should do something about it in this year's budget. We need a review of that education
in the
policy.
review, and you mentioned equitable distribution of it, do you mean that the percentage that is made available for the free SHS should be reduced and then, transferred onto the percentage that is used for the basic education, or you want it to be at par?
To achieve that, you need to look at two things. KPMG in their report indicated, and I have been of that view since, that the best way to have approached this so that there will be revenue available for distribution to the other sectors is to ensure that people who are able to pay for free SHS help in the funding of free SHS. We should not have a situation where people who are able to pay 5,000 cities, 10,000 cities for the awards in the best basic schools in this country are unable to pay SHS, which will cost, looking at the state of the economy now, about 3,000, something of that sort. We should not have a situation where such people make no payment or no contribution to the development of the country. So equitable distribution means that those who can afford help in the funding of free SHS so that resources will be available to fund basic education. We cannot create that situation where basic education becomes the weakest link in the development of the young child. If basic education, especially JHS, becomes the weakest link in the development of the young child, then the motive with which we approach free SHS, which is inclusion of the poorest of people who are marginalized, will be defeated because they would have lost the battle from initial. And they would have to compete at second cycle level with the worlds of people who go to the best basic schools, people who went to private basic schools.
Right.
They would get access to, St. Augustine, St. Peter's, and all those places, which they would not be able to go because they would have performed poorly. They would have had aggregate 40 and all those things in the BEC and not be able to get in there. That is the situation we are creating. And I don't see this as developing education. I don't see this as inclusive in any way if this is how we approach financing education in Ghana. That is my concern.
Daniel, you mentioned that last year you expected employment, but this year even more. But I'm of the view that employment, the data shows that it's been better than last year, has it not?
Yeah, but you know something, it's everything seems to be the paperwork. But going deep down to the various community, you realize that there is a huge number of unemployment. That tells us that despite the fact that the numbers are showing that yes, there have been efforts in bringing up all those problems, I strongly believe that one thing that we could do would be investing much into the micro and small scale and medium scale enterprises, where it will at least lessen the burden when it comes to employment.
But last year, the budget showed some it showed some schemes that people could access to be able to widen up their entrepreneurial businesses so that there'll be more employment. Is it that young people are looking forward to a certain type of employment, or there's literally not employment at all?
I strongly don't believe so, that Ghanaians are lazy. Ghanaians aren't lazy. I believe that they should look into the processes and how these policies are implemented. The question here is, are we giving the youth the opportunity to use these avenues to seek for employment or get what they deserve, or it is the paperwork, as I said earlier on, and we bring it to light, and it will be like there is a policy or an Obatampa policy, but implementing happens to be a challenge.
So I also remember the last time we had a conversation, we were saying that there were some promises to secure certain acres of land so the young people could go into agriculture. I do not know whether or not we were able to secure it or it's still in process. Do you think young people, given the chance, would want to go into agriculture? And do you think it is the way, when we say employment, creating the employment, would you say that agriculture was the one district one factory?
Oh, yeah, yes. You see, everything begins from the basics. How do we see agriculture in the first place? We find ourselves in a country where we see agriculture way back in the basic school, when you are to speak to you or when you are to do something bad, you are sent to go weed.
Punishment is agriculture.
Yes. So we start from the basic. But I think I'm having some teachers, colleagues that have invested into farming. That should tell you that people are willing to invest into farming. But where is the capital? That happens to be a challenge. Because if you are to move for financial help, you realize huge sums of interest on loans. And if you are to invest huge sums of money into farming and you don't gain, it means the next time you wouldn't invest into it. Yes. So that happens to be the challenge.
Understandable. Gordon, we're going to Doug to ask him which of the sectors, they're quite clear. Anthony last year was on education. We'll come back to him to whether or not he's still on education or he's changed his focus this year. Daniel is very clear. Yeah, he says employment. But Doug, I'm curious, what's your sector that you're looking forward to hearing in the budget today?
Thank you very much. I think before I answer you, I need to correct something in my initial statement.
Okay.
I use 40%. That is the August inflationary rate. Yeah. Was what I indicated. Yes. So in September it was 38.1 rather, and that for October is 35.2%. Yeah. So yeah, that is the trend in terms of the reductionary rate. I need to correct that before Honorable Finance Minister comes. Right, to answer the question now, yes, I think agric is still critical to the development of this country, and we should be able to see a lot of policy direction and how the previous policies in terms of planning for food and jobs failed so far, and how government is going to, kind of enhance that particular policy. To me, agric is still critical. We cannot take it out of our development equation, and it's one of the critical over the years real sectors of the economy. As much as services has been dictating the pace, agric is still critical. How do we add value to agric? How do we make agric very lucrative and attractive for young people to go into farming? We have that policy. The minister have mentioned it over and over. But how do we lift up our gains in terms of having a concrete and deliberate investment into that particular, to support that particular policy to ensure that we achieve the intended goal? As it stands now, as a result of climate change, okay, food security is now a global issue, and it's an issue for the continent of Africa, and more significant. So this is the time for us to invest into planting for food and jobs. Number one, to ensure that we have food sufficiency. We add value, we process the food, we add value for export and also for domestic consumption at a very competitive prices. I tell people that in your domestic economy, if the economic conditions are not right, and the price of food is equally high, then you are in trouble. That is where the problem comes. But if you are able to attend to the needs of people in terms of food items at a very competitive prices, you are in the process of solving the hardship within the domestic economy. Okay. So here at agric, we are not just focusing on just the farming aspect, but along the value chain, agro-processing, agribusiness, marketing, etc. There should be a deliberate policy. Of course, there is one that we have in the system that I mentioned, planting for food and jobs, and also motivating young people to go into farming. How do we deliberately support them? In fact, most of the policies that the government have lined, which on paper, to me, I've said it appears very progressive. But in terms of reality, the financial resources needed to be able to drive that policy is not there. That is first thing. Then number two, the political dimension to driving the policy ought to be looked at, so that we'll have a very holistic discourse and discussion. The people with the know-how to be able to assist in driving that policy ought to be given opportunity to do that. So to me, I expect to see more in respect of the agric sector. Then the second sector, of course, which is also very significant to the development of this country, have to do the manufacturing sector. I left services because services appear to be performing very well over the period. Okay. Manufacturing is very key. And manufacturing, I'll tie that to the energy sector. We need a very reliable energy to be able to drive industrialization agenda. If you recall, since His Excellency the President took over the leadership of this country, the agenda has been to industrialize this country, hence one factory, one district. We would like to know the state of that particular policy and what ought to be done to ensure that we further enhance that particular policy. How are we ensuring that industry have a reliable power at a very competitive rate? That is very key. Also, financing for the industrial sector as well as the agric is also very important. As it stands now, the cost of capital is high. For people wanting to venture into agric, most of the banks are not willing to finance agric-related activity because of the risks involved. Those in manufacturing, because of the high cost of capital, they are not able to access funding. And the third aspect is the competition from China and other countries competing with the locally produced goods in the country. How do we address that in terms of policy direction? So to me, these are some of the things that the Honorable Minister ought to address. Let us also not forget that this budget is going to set as a springboard for our recovery agenda. And more importantly, that the IMF is on board. So we would like to see concrete policy direction in terms of these two critical sectors of the economy.
Okay.
I mean, I wanted to ask Doc, if I may, I am of the personal opinion, after agriculture is the road sector for me. I have said that I think that for the economy to bounce back, we'll need to have, transportation is a very important thing, and having motorable roads and the roads that government promised this year of roads is very essential to driving the agri sector. I don't know what I don't know what you think. The Concerned Drivers Association have said that government should reintroduce the road tolls to help them build more roads. I don't know if you share in this sentiment by the Concerned Drivers Association or Union.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with them totally, because you need, the road network is very key. If they produce in the farmland or the hinterlands, how are we going to get the produce? So the road network is very key to driving agriculture, and even along that value chain, road network is very key. So there must be a deliberate, massive infrastructure. And you rightly hinted that the government over the period indicated that they declared last year as the year of, this year as the year of road. We've not seen much, but this is the time to be able to kind of execute that kind of that policy. Yeah, in terms of the road tolls, I mean, when that policy was announced, I cannot recall whether on this your platform or one of your sister platforms, I indicated that that's not a good move for the government. So yes, restoring it and ensuring that we expand the road networks is very key and critical, not only for agriculture, but also to enhance productivity within the sector. I stay at Dodowa, and if I don't leave home by 4:30, what it means is that I may get to the office around 9 a.m. And it's a journey that can take you maximum 30 minutes, 35 from Dodowa to Accra. Traffic hours, it can take you about 3 to 4 hours lost in productivity. So these are some of the things that ought to be done. So I agree perfectly with their submission.
Okay. So Anthony, I've got like 3 questions. I'll box it together. One will be obviously this year. Do you still hold the education sector as a place that you think you should pay attention to? But mindful of the IMF and where we are, I do not really expect that the finance minister is going to show up in Parliament today and cut down on a lot of things. So in the tax element, the rates, the base and all of that, where do you think you're expecting that we reduce? Where do you think we should increase? Should it be the rate? Should it be the base? Are we widening, or we should close it up and increase the rates? So you box this together.
So first of all, on education, as I said, nothing has changed. So it's expected that they do something about that sector. You see, free SHS cannot become a mini god or something in the room that we keep worshipping in a manner that everything else can collapse on the altar of free SHS. That is what we are seeing. Government is afraid of the idea that should we say we are reviewing free SHS in a manner that makes equitable distribution of education resources, such that basic education is not struggling and all that. They see it as a political defect. But that is not what we should be concerned about as a government. We should be concerned about the young people who need to travel several kilometers because education infrastructure at the basic school level is suffering. We should be concerned about the situation at the University of Ghana, where they can't hire more lecturers. As we speak right now, one lecturer could be taking a class of almost 1,000 people, and the lecturers can't even mark their papers because government is saying that they should not employ. All these effects we must look at tertiary and basic education, how we are implementing this policy, when we can get people to help. And as I said, they are doing it this way because the awards don't get to pass through these systems. They need to do something about it. So it has not changed. Something must be done about it.
What if,
now,
let's stay there before we go to the elements. So what if the government believes that the middle belt of education is the most important part of a person? Well, I do not rule out the formative stage of a child, where, you know, from primary, basic level is what you need. But if we have scarcity of resources, and this is our resource, We have the basic level, we have the secondary, then we have the tertiary, and they choose to take the middle belt.
That belief will be unfounded. This is why the belief will be unfounded. What is the reason for free SHS? The reason for free SHS is for inclusivity. To bring in the poorest of people in society to be able to catch up with the rest. That is the basic reason for free SHS. That is what Nana Addo told us on the campaign tour. If that reason is why we are doing it, then you must look at the society as a whole. The society as a whole. Which people go to public basic schools where they need textbooks supplied by the government? It is these same people you said you are targeting. And so if you abandon them now at the basic school level, where they are struggling, they cannot even get the textbooks, they cannot sit in proper classrooms, they are drawing desktops on the floor to be able to learn basic ICT, while the people you say you are helping them to compete with at the tertiary level are in private schools, being sponsored by their parents who belong to a better part of the society in terms of resource-wise. While those people are there struggling, you left them out. And then when they get to SHS level, their formative years are wasted. They are unable to compete in any way. Then you say you are helping them. You are not helping them.
Would you hold the same view if they didn't do free SHS? Because I'd say that basic education has been like this since Nkrumah time.
No, it has not been declined. It has not been seeing decline. At least we can't say that it was the best, but it was not seeing decline. It was seeing improvement. Infrastructure investment in 2012, if you check the report, if you can check the statistics, 2012 was when education had the highest budget in this country. Massive investment went into basic infrastructure. You can check the data. So it was not seeing decline. It was seeing an improvement, albeit not being the best in the world. So what we are seeing now is a decline. We should not have that situation, especially when you say you are helping people who do not have a competitive edge to compete. You don't do it this way.
And this decline is because we've taken a chunk of what we need to
exactly, and we are not investing
in
in basic education because we feel that free SHS has become a demigod that must be worshipped. If you speak about reviewing, then they feel you are problematic. We must do it. It's something we cannot keep having this way. We must do something about it, and that is the way to go.
If you had the power, what would you do? Let's go to the tax elements.
If I had the,
if you're in Parliament today and you're mindful of the IMF, where we are, the requirements, where we are now, what would you do?
Yes, I mean, key flagship policy, as I said, would have to be touched no matter what. We can't keep worshipping it. But looking at the indicators we have so far, we are saying the stats are telling us from the quarterly report on labor yesterday that vulnerable people in vulnerable employment has increased from 64% in the last quarter to 68% in this quarter. What it means is that people in jobs that do not have any security cover, people in jobs that do not have health insurance, people in jobs that are not necessarily protected by any labor group and all those things are the ones who are increasing, which means that if you increase tax, especially these flat rate tax on consumption and all these people, you are targeting those people. You are targeting the poorest of people to suffer because their expenditure, immediately they spend, they are taxed. Unlike income tax, which is a bit progressive, it does not work for them that way. When they fall sick, they don't have insurance cover and all that. So government must focus its budget this year on protecting those vulnerable groups in society. Any budget that does not do that, especially in the midst of the IMF, restrictions that we have, is a failed budget. And I mean, the government is rumored to be expecting 11 billion cedis in revenue. How they intend to achieve that, from tax revenue, I mean, how they intend to achieve that, I do not know. But if you look at the strategy for revenue generation that they have published, they claim that they are going to redesign e-levy to improve its administrative, structure and increase the revenues it is generated. I don't know what they mean by that.
I thought it was already redesigned.
I don't know what they mean by redesign. So we are looking forward to see how they are going to do that. No matter how they intend to achieve that 11 billion cedis extra revenue from taxation, please, protection of vulnerable groups must feature in how they approach it. They must scrap that sanitary pad tax. It makes no sense that in Ghana today, we are taxing the menstruation of young people. It makes absolutely no sense that is happening in 21st century Ghana. Why is this happening? So they must scrap that tax. E-levy itself, I mean, if government was minded, it should not exist. You told us that you are taxing us for COVID-19 health recovery levy. The world has declared the pandemic to be over. You are still taxing us.
They said they have expenses
from what? COVID-19, to be honest, was a blessing to Ghana. $100 million IMF and World Bank and all that. Those monies that they got, they spent it because of election. They spent it because of election 2020, wasted it, promised free water and free electricity. These are self-imposed, so they should not use any of those things as an excuse.
The vulnerable were excluded in the e-levy.
They were not.
Did you not hear that they said that if you're able to afford 100 Ghana cedis per the stats
these are very ludicrous statements that we shouldn't even be repeating. That statement was regrettable. It is one that shouldn't have come from a person of her stature. I don't even want to mention the name because I don't want to be labeled a statement. What we need to be focusing on right now is the protection of vulnerable people, as I stated. If we are focused on doing that, then e-levy, I mean, we should not think about increasing it or adjusting it or doing anything. The best we could do in this is even scrapping it, not even thinking of adjusting it in any way. So we don't want to see that happen in this budget. The COVID-19 levies, they should scrap it. You can't tell us that you were doing us a favor and later turn around to tax us. And to think about the fact that they are considering communication service tax. It's also in their strategy. I don't know if they want to increase it or not. We see what they want to do about it. They said they are going to adjust or review the rate. If they are going to increase all those things, then they are going to be placing burden on the poorest of people in society.
So how will the government raise funds?
The government should raise funds, but as I said, readjust some of your flagship policies. The way you do them is causing you problem.
Okay.
Readjust it.
Which is free SHS.
Exactly. And you are
you
still
okay
keeping
with the one district, one factory?
one district, one factory and its implementation.
You will be happy
also,
with it because it will create some employment.
one district, one factory and its implementation also, if you look at it generally, the larger chunk of the policy was about giving money to existing pharmaceuticals and all that. That's what they were doing. It was not as if they were building new factories and all that.
If you improve it and create more employment.
Well, generally that is what they are doing. So I don't see how that policy achieves anything. Planting for food and jobs, as Doc was saying, that policy would have worked if government had maintained some existing policy outlines. For example, supporting agriculture by, removing, giving subsidy to the farmers. What we are seeing under this government, they were removing those subsidies. Fertilizer and all those things, the prices have increased within this period. How do you sustain a policy which is targeted at making sure that productivity in the agricultural sector increases by removing subsidies? You understand? So those things are the areas that the government is supposed to be looking at if we want to improve within this period. So please, protection of vulnerable groups, readjusting our expenditure when it comes to education is one of the things that must feature prominently in this budget. Other than that, it is the same cycle putting up political approach to, running the economy, while a lot of sectors are struggling at the expense of maintaining a certain political atmosphere. The thoughts that we have implemented free SHS, we have kept it the way it is. When the policy itself is struggling, we need to do something about those areas if something is going to work in this country.
Daniel, I'm sure you know that in trying to create more jobs and employment will mean that we need to make money to pay for these creation and also pay for people who would be working. Would you recalibrate the tax system in the country?
Yeah, in fact, I'll be very glad that today we'll be hearing waiving taxes like e-levy, as Julius rightfully said, the COVID taxes. I'll be very glad to hear that it's off.
Okay.
Also, taxes on sanitary pads. In fact, about 32.5%, 20 on import duties and 12.5 valued added tax should should be taken off. Then I would also be glad to see the revisit of they bringing back road tolls. I would highly be very, 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 very happy, because we could all attest to the fact that we lost almost 1 billion Ghana cedis after we stopped taking tolls. Yeah. And that alone could have helped us if we want to raise funds to support other fields. Also, education, it's one consent thing. Free SHS policy is perfect, but it needs a revisit.
What particularly? If you had the power to revisit it,
right.
what would you do?
I strongly believe that we could have a cutoff point as it used to be previously, where probably if you don't get aggregate 25, you wouldn't have access to senior high school. I strongly believe that if we should bring back that policy, it will help. If you don't learn,
it defeats the purpose.
No. I'm coming. You see, at first, students were learning so hard. You learn. There is a particular grade. I'm not saying necessarily it should be a grade 25. That is just an example.
You want at least
there should be a grade point. Yes, there should be a grade point. Now, what it means is, if there should be a grade point, you realize that it would definitely, it wouldn't cut off people's ambition of going into the senior high school. But what is happening now? I teach at the senior high school.
Okay.
And you could realize that I'm not saying people that come to the senior high school with the aggregates 40 and 35 aren't good. But you could see that majority of them are not concerned. They're like, I care less. After all,
what
I've
would be
been
the
pushed
option for
here.
them?
The option is to have a grade point.
For the person that doesn't make it to that good point, what would be the option?
I mean,
A remedial should be given to such
but
students.
will the government pay for the remedial?
You see, I was very happy to be a part of the new curriculum for senior high school, the review. You know, the designing one, which involves the having remedial sessions as a part of the whole structure.
Inculcated in the
yes,
curriculum.
inculcated in the curriculum, and I think it will definitely help. But
that's expensive. We're looking to
don't
cut
think
it
it will
down.
be.
If you finish the school and come back to come
Oh no,
and
you are not finishing the school and coming back. But you know, at first of all, are we all into academics? That has been our challenge.
Are you drawing towards TVET?
Perfect. We having students that aren't academically oriented. They have their field, but we find ourselves in a situation where we've aligned everyone into the academia, and it is giving us much
But
problems.
the secondary level
understand what
has
he's saying.
technical and vocational options. You know,
But what is happening in MFA? Everyone wants to go to the process,
the high schools,
the high
Anthony,
schools.
you were disagreeing at some point.
Yes, I disagree with his approach to solving the,
The review.
Yes, issue. The reason being that I was making the point earlier that if we have a system that, prioritizes grades the way it is. For example, I grew up in the Volta region. I went to Amazing Love School. Anyone in the Volta region knows Amazing Love and Kabore are one of the best basic schools you can attend. I go there. I'm making an example. I go there. Somebody went to a government basic school throughout, underfunded
Just like
and
myself,
all.
basic school.
And underfunded the whole time. Probably I was able to afford textbooks and all that because my parents paid private education for me. Somebody went to the government basic school because probably, the person belongs to a social group that is unable to afford Amazing Love at that time.
Yeah.
Then we
That
are
will
going into
show up in their
SHS.
results.
It's going to show up in their results. Then we are going to SHS. And then there's a state-funded program at the SHS level.
give all of us an equal opportunity.
equal opportunity. Then I take it because I had probably aggregate 10 and the person had 25. If we should do that, it would be unfair to the same group of marginalized people we are saying we want to actually include. That is why, of all the things I disagreed with, the funding and running of our education sector with, one of the things when I was new secretary, I didn't have a problem with the SHS policy is the consideration they make when it comes to these vulnerable basic schools. There's actually a government policy that looks as the community the person attended school with and all those things, and it goes into the placement. If we don't look at those things, then we will marginalize the same people we claim we are including. So I do not agree with an approach where we use the grades. If you use the grades that way, the same people you said you are helping, you will not be able to help. A child who grew up in Accra throughout, went to the best basic schools over here, would go to Presec, would go to St. Augustine's, would go to Motown, would go to all these schools at the expense of that guy who grew up somewhere who did not have.
We should enhance
Exactly. So we must
government.
enhance. So the only way to deal with this thing is to redistribute our expenditure, enhance basic education. Basic
Give everybody
education
a fair-
should not mean that once it is a government basic school, it must be poor. The SHS in this country, the ones that everybody wants to go, are government institutions. But they are doing well. And do you know why they are doing better? Because majority of them were funded by the missions, the Presbyterian missions, the Catholic missions, and all those things.
Well-funded,
They've been
well-provided for.
exactly. They've been able to institutionalize these schools very well. Why is it that the government fails at it? So what we should be doing is a review of our policy that is in a way favorable to basic education. We can make basic education in Ghana as good as second cycle education.
Very well.
And the way to do it
Then
is to
we'll
not
have the grade
politicize the
14s
approach.
and then the 15s.
It's
But
to
then
not
they'll want to
politicize the
sanitize
approach.
it.
So
We're
when we
finished
do
the
it,
Let's touch
conversation.
on because of our time.
Yes,
Yeah.
you see, my problem
30
here
seconds, if you
is,
can.
yes, it's true. I sided with Julius when he said those that could fund for their awards should do so. That is perfect. I 100% agree with that. But the question that I would want to ask him is, will he be glad to see a student bringing a grade 50 and will still be enjoying free SHS? That is a question to himself. However, I also believe that yes, it should be revisited, and it shouldn't one way or the other sideline anyone in the poorest vicinity or something. Because personally, I come from Jumapo in the Eastern region. That is where I attended my basic school, Jumapo Methodist Primary School. The name alone should tell you that Yes. However, I managed to have a grade 12.
I mean, you see,
Yeah, I mean,
we
you
are
know,
not
another
saying-
thing, because
we are not
there's
saying
no time, but I understand
everybody-
what you're saying.
So, you know, it's possible.
If
You
it
get
is
it?
free,
It's
you
a
must
cycle.
it must be merited.
Definitely.
It's okay.
But you see, once a person has better, environment,
They
that
can improve.
person has a better chance
better
than someone who
Probability is
who
high.
does not have a
I
better
understand. I think one of the things we also didn't talk about is security during these times. I hope that the finance minister touches on security.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
It's
we
very
just might
important.
be here after, and then we'll see if everybody's associations have captured, and definitely we look forward to that relief or what arrangement the government has got for the people of Mefe and its environs. My people, we
very
really, really look forward to that. Since you say that it was a necessary intervention that they had to engage in to prevent a bigger and a larger destruction. So we look forward to that budget day. But guys, let's do some fashion. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you,
Daniel.
Liza.
Thank
The
you
name,
to
you agree, right?
economist,
Agreed, I think.
economist via Zoom, Dr. Daniel.
Doc, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.